You always forget I can talk.
Is Futurama's commitment to continuity holding it back? Don't get me wrong, I love the show's attention to detail, the callbacks to previous bits and lore, and the way episodes intertwine with each other.
I did do the nasty and the pasty.
Verily.
Nibbler himself sits at the center of one of the most impressive continuities in all of television. A tease in a pilot that pays off seasons later. But he's also one of the most consistent continuity issues that the show ran into in the later movies and Comedy Central seasons. Errors that it feels like Parasites Regained set out to rectify.
Without treatment, he'll be left with the IQ of a terrier.
While I do think the episode was pretty good, best of the Hulu run so far, in fact, I don't think the show really needed to fix the whole sometimes Nibbler is a pet and sometimes he talks situation. Kinda like how we don't know what Qbert is up to when he's not on the show. Like seriously, who is watching this kid? He's like 12 years old, but the show doesn't call attention to it, so it's fine.
You? Oh, my son. Don't worry. He's been safely abandoned with his godfather.
Okay, sometimes they call a little attention to it, but this scene is contained within the subplot of this episode, after Qbert has already been on screen. If every time the writers wanted to use Qbert in an episode, they first had to include some line about returning home from boarding school or something, it wouldn't add anything to the show except this new expectation from the audience that this is canon now. Maintaining canon in a non-serialized animated comedy that includes anthology episodes is an impossible task, and one that can even be constraining.
Oh, now you tell me.
For example, 3 out of 4 Hulu revival episodes so far have been moderately to strongly connected to the continuity of episodes from the previous runs of the show. The Impossible Stream opens up the Meanwhile ending. Children of a Lesser Bog concludes the story of Kif gets knocked up a notch, and this latest episode retcons the mishandling of Nibbler's continuity in the follow-ups to the Fox series. Once again, please do not get me wrong, I am not saying that I don't like the interconnected nature of Futurama's episodes. In fact, one of my favorite Futurama bits is this throwaway line from Fry in Fun on a Bun.
Most folks just call me Orange Joe.
It's a setup that literally takes over a year, 17 episodes in a new broadcast season to pay off.
Listen to Orange Joe.
The late Philip J. Fry, the best episode from the Comedy Central run as far as I'm concerned, even has its own quick series of callbacks. It's so interconnected, it's even referenced in Disenchantment as a little Easter egg. And that's the point. A lot of Futurama's continuity isn't really continuity at all. It's a variety of running gags that the audience attaches meaning to. I'm guilty of this myself. Just ask my 30-minute video about Planet Express's suspect finances. These inside jokes can build up over time and establish what essentially feels like a lore for the show. But Futurama wants you to take that lore as seriously as you take Bender's 40% composition claims.
I'm 60% storage space.
In an interview with Lightspeed magazine in 2015, David X. Cohen said this when asked about how they maintain continuity. We often consult fan wiki pages, where they have compiled all the appearances of various characters, and make sure we have not done something we're going to do. There are many fans that have better memory of the show than us. Cohen isn't saying they're checking the Infosphere website and tearing up scripts because they don't fit into Futurama's larger continuity. He's talking about making sure they're keeping ideas fresh. But it's worth pointing out that he's aware that fans pay close attention to all of this. It could, for example, make him feel like there's a need to correct an inconsistency in Nibbler's speaking habits. As I said, I don't think Nibbler's continuity was a problem. There is one exception, when Nibbler eats himself out of the universe at the end of Bender's big score, and then just kinda shows up again in Bender's game. But what we're talking about is his status as a pet or a crew member. In the Comedy Central series, That Darn Cats establishes Nibbler as a part of the crew, but it ends by showing us that his pet-like relationship with Leela is still very much in play. He goes back and forth between the two roles throughout the episode, giving up the whole game at one point.
Nothing acts that cute without some ulterior motive.
Aww, you want your diaper changed?
We'll have to watch its every move.
That's 8 episodes into the Comedy Central run. There was only one Nibbler appearance before it. This episode gives him a blank check to act like a dog or as a valued member of the crew, and he uses it. There doesn't seem to be a problem for him, Leela, or the rest of the crew when he does it either. And the only one who's ever made a comment about forgetting was Amy.
I always forget that he can talk.
In trying to correct the Nibbler duality, they've called attention to it in a way that turns it into an unforced error. Leela not remembering that Nibbler can talk doesn't fit in with any of the preceding history of the show, undercuts the depths of their relationship, and detracts from the emotional beats of the episode. Ultimately, it feels like it goes against the philosophy Cohen laid out at a San Diego Comic-Con in 2011, saying, I guess what happens is we think of an idea for a story. We then monkey around a little bit, looking at our previous episodes that we're going to contradict, and we try where we can to tie up loose ends. But if we think the story is good, we go with it basically, because we already have a non-comprehensible timeline. The continuity in Futurama is sort of like a condiment. It can certainly add to the overall enjoyment of the show when used in moderation. But you also have icons like In-N-Out burgers and the Big Mac that are defined by the special sauce condiments that they use. Many iconic episodes of Futurama, like Roswell That Ends Well and The Why of the Fry, are absolutely drenched in that continuity special sauce.
I.C.Wiener.
Oh, crud.
But sometimes you just want to mash handfuls of McDonald's French fries straight into your mouth. Who gives a shit about ketchup? Okay, I might be losing a handle on this metaphor, but if you put too much ketchup on something, it just tastes like ketchup. And if you worry too much about the continuity of your episodic show, it's going to taste like a serialized show. Futurama has always operated with a philosophy that is a bit more in keeping with classic television comedies before streaming services started to dominate the media landscape.
At the end of the episode, everything's always right back to normal.
It's pretty common for shows to start from the same basic starting point week to week, regardless of how the shenanigans might have ended the week prior.
Antiquing?
Now, this is not to say that anything goes in a Futurama story as long as it's good. We're not talking about tales of interest here, or those, let's call them, other anthology episodes. Can we just stop making anthology episodes? Or at least go back to the what if machine, for fuck's sake. Sorry, what was I saying? I'm kind of seeing red thinking about Naturama. Right, continuity. Futurama doesn't operate based on a strict canon with developing plot lines, and instead uses its history to guide things. So it shouldn't be taken too seriously or as gospel. All that said, let's over-scrutinize the absolute shit out of this episode because I think I know when Nibbler got worms. We can pretty much rule out the entire Fox run. There are only 2 appearances where Nibbler speaks, and his tracks are covered each time. So his dog-like behavior is easily explained by his cover as Leela's pet. It is possible that Nibbler contracted the parasites from Fry during the Fox series. The worms bear a resemblance, but it could just be the same species. Nibbler's worms don't seem to know about Fry, but there could have been hundreds of generations of worms between, and that knowledge could be lost to time. There's no real way of knowing. However, in the movies that take place later, Nibbler doesn't really show any signs of having the parasites. As you'd expect, the crew is surprised to learn Nibbler can speak when he does so early on in Bender's big score. This would have been the first time the entire crew actually became aware of Nibbler's intelligence rather than just a few key individuals. But Nibbler never wipes the memories of the crew, a fact that he forgets after he exits and later somehow re-enters the universe. This explains his behavior at the beginning of Bender's game. He's acting like Leela's pet because he doesn't realize his cover has been totally blown. He calls out to Leela when he's imprisoned in Mom's crap factory because it's his only chance at rescue.
You mean you've known I was sentient? Then why did you let me eat Friskies and make Bobo in a litter box?
Well, you're cuter that way.
He doesn't blank out everyone's memories after Bender's game either. Or ever again, actually. The next time we see Nibbler in action is the first episode of the Comedy Central return of the show, Rebirth. Nibbler is acting very much like a dog in this one scene that he's in, and we don't hear him speak at all in the episode. Of course, as I've said, this could simply be Nibbler playing his role as Leela's pet, but for who? In this scene, Leela is dead. That's a robot. So he's not protecting Leela. He's not sniffing out an imposter robot either. Everyone in the room knows that Leelabot is a robot. Furthermore, even if it was an imposter, everyone in the room also knows Nibbler can speak, so he could just tell them. Which means Nibbler is biting Leelabot to inform Leelabot that she's, Leelabot. But she also knows Nibbler can speak, and he could have just told her. Biting her doesn't make that much sense. Unless Nibbler is suffering from a parasite that is turning him more dog-like, much like his reaction here. Nibbler would no doubt be emotional at the loss of Leela, and that compromised state could leave him more vulnerable to the effects of the worms. If that were the case, and he was having a momentary lapse in intelligence, this behavior makes a lot more sense. A dog sensing something is weirdly off with their beloved owner could very easily react this way. While this isn't direct evidence, this is quite possibly the earliest sign of the parasites having some effect on Nibbler. And if this is true, it would effectively retcon the entirety of the Comedy Central run. Nibbler slipping in and out of his pet role wasn't because he was Leela's pet, it was because worms were eating his brain. Anyway, thanks for watching, bye.